Jonah, Mace, Stewart. So I moved here 2 years ago and came to this great congregation where I found out very quickly how important it was to be friendly with one another and unified. I've met some amazing people. I've met Kale, Gabe, Stephen, Jacob, Jeremy, Tim, and it's been amazing to see their influence in my life and in the lives of others. I've grown physically, but more importantly, I've grown spiritually from just meeting these people. And what that tells me is that we need godly friends and influences. In the Bible, there are so many examples of friends. Some are well known, like Jonathan and David, Ruth and Naomi, or Paul and Timothy. These examples are important because in each of these friendships, they all focused on God. If you turn to Psalm 15, I'm about to read that. But in Psalm 15, we read about what David describes as someone who walks with the Lord. But it's also describing how our friend should be. I'll be reading Psalm 15 from the New King James Version. Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. The first reason we need godly friends and influences is for protection. In 1 Samuel 20, Jonathan is protecting David from physical harm. In verses 41 and 42, we read about how he does this. As soon as the lad had gone, David arose from the place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground, and bowed down 3 times. They kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, 'May the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'" So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. They had to separate to protect David's life. In Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, we read about how Ruth pledges her loyalty to Naomi. Verse 16 reads, "But Ruth said, 'Entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The Lord do to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me.'" Paul protected Timothy not just as a friend and a brother in Christ, but as his father figure. But we as Christians need each other, and we can help protect one another spiritually. Sometimes we can forget that Satan tries to separate us, but when we rely on each other, we grow spiritually stronger. It is so much easier to fight temptation when we do it together. We need godly friends and influences for spiritual protection, but there's another reason. The second reason we need godly friends and influences is to help us grow in our faith. Jonathan and David trusted God, and that helped them in their walk with God, and eventually David was called a man after God's own heart. Ruth was a Moabitess, and her relationship with Naomi exposed her to our one Lord. In 2 Timothy 1, verse 5, Paul is encouraged by Timothy's faith. Proverbs 27:17 tells us, "So as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens the countenance of his friend." When we help each other spiritually, we grow in our faith. Jesus said in John 15:1-11, that if we don't grow and influence others, we'll be cut off. We need godly friends and influences for spiritual protection and to help us grow in our faith. But how can we be a godly friend and influence to others? One way is when we go back to our home congregations, you can go up to someone in your youth group and build a relationship with them. One thing Jeremy does that I think is really good is every Thursday he goes to lunch with some of his closest friends. They always know that they can encourage and rely on each other. Let's strive to be the person David describes in Psalm 15, so one day we can make it to heaven together.